Last week you drew a 1-point perspective drawing using the technique to show 3D. So it's very important that you use your ruler to draw the lines that go to the vanishing point like we practiced last week, and that you make sure that those lines are either drawn to the vanishing point, or if they're vertical, they should be parallel to the vertical edge of your paper. And if they're horizontal, then they would be parallel to the horizon line. So the horizon line is the point on the horizon where the sky and the land appear to meet. And we drew the road, and we drew about 3 city buildings, and we drew a park across the road. Today, I want to show you how to use value and color. One other thing I wanted to point out, here's another drawing. Sometimes you might want to write words on your picture. And so I made this a toy store, and I made this Ace Hardware. So if you wanted to do that, so on this drawing, for example, without a word, you would need to draw a line that goes to the vanishing point in your drawing so that it would be positioned correctly. And then on that line, you could write your word, and it would need to be parallel to the other lines of your building. So a T, for example, the top would need to be parallel to the top of my building, and then my line that is vertical needs to be vertical with the building. So that's how you would draw a letter. That in particular would be the letter T in perspective. Okay, so again, the top has to be drawn to the vanishing point, and the vertical lines of the T would need to be vertical like the edge of your window. I'll just quickly put the O-Y-S so that you can see the O. You know, it's going to sit on the line that goes to the vanishing point, and you'll just want to double it probably to give it thickness. The Y, that line, the straight vertical line needs to be with the vanishing point, while the other lines are in perspective, so they should line up with the vanishing point. And then last is the S. You know how the S is shaped. And then you could just thicken it if you would like, so that it looks like an S. So now for the coloring, which is a lot of fun because you have all of the drawing in perspective. Remember the technique of overlapping, where it looks like one thing is in front of another thing, such as with the tree in the pond and the buildings in the cloud, even a little bit of the tree and the sun, and the buildings each overlap each other. Remember to erase any unnecessary lines, like your horizon line should not be showing in your building, so you should have erased those lines, but keep the ones that are behind the building, the horizon there where the sky appears to meet the land. Let's pretend like this toy store is blue. In any toy store could be blue because that's a fun color for a store. If it's the place where it's on the side that the light shines, so my sun is here, so there's going to be light here even if the sun's going down. So maybe I should use light blue, since this is the bright side where the light shines onto the building. And when you're coloring, color neatly, and you know, you don't want to just color haphazardly when you've done all this work to make all your lines neat and correct. So try to color neatly and the same direction as much as possible. So if I'm going in a vertical spot like this, maybe color it vertical. If I'm in a horizontal spot, color it horizontal. Maybe on the side that's not facing the sun, it's going to be a darker shade of blue. So I'm switching to a darker version of blue on this side of the building because of the shadow. So remember, if the light is over here, it's going to shine across the fronts of these buildings, while this side over here will be more in shadow, and that's why I'm using a darker shade of blue. And you may not have the exact colors, but you can see that this adds value, light and dark. So in art, value is the lightness or darkness of a color. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Now notice when I don't press down as hard, it lightens the value. And when I press down harder, it darkens it. So you can also use that when you are doing light and shadow. When you're up close to a line, it's good to kind of color alongside that line to keep it neat. When you're going around little things like windows and doors, you know, you have to pay attention and be careful with that. And if you have a lot of streaks and spots, try to fill those in as best you can when you're coloring with colored pencils. You could use crayons if that's what you would like to use. Same idea, lights and darks also in crayons, or just don't press down as hard if you want it to be light, and then press down a little bit harder if you want it to be dark. Okay, and I could keep going over this until I get it as dark as I want it. So you get the idea. What about windows? If you want the lights to be on in your building, I think yellow will be a good way to show that the lights are on. And so I'm going to go inside of my little curve-shaped windows. You could do any shaped windows that you would like. Maybe you did squares or rectangles. And my pencil lead just broke on my colored pencil, so I'm going to a different sort of yellow, and this is more of a dull yellow, but I would need to sharpen that in order to get it to work better. I'm going to color my sun orange, and notice where the trees overlap the sun, I'm not coloring the leaves orange. I'm going to leave those for when I get to the leaves coloring portion of this drawing. So for now, I'm going to color the sun orange, and then I'll do something interesting in my sky to make it look kind of like a sunrise or sunset, whichever you choose. I think my leaves on my trees should be green, so I'm going to go in and color all of my leaves green. It won't take as long as it looks like it might take because they're so small. But where it overlaps the sun, you can see how I showed overlapping. For the tree trunk, I think I'm going to use brown. You could use gray. Some trees have gray bark. There's even trees with white bark. Birch trees have white bark. A lot of trees have kind of grayish tan or grayish brown bark. And I can go in and add more leaves there if I would like. The tree that's closer to me, which is the one that I'm working on now, you can show a little more detail, you know, like a few little lumps and bumps that occur on trees. Anytime you look at a tree closely, you can see those. And that's fun to show up close. You wouldn't see as many details on the tree that's farther away from us. And after this is already drawn and you're coloring, it goes a lot quicker because it's really just like coloring it in. You could do a lighter green on the tree in the foreground, on the leaves, because just for variety, and because these leaves may be closer to you and more brightly colored. And if you wanted to, you could do a tree with red leaves, you know, if you were doing something like a red maple, or if you were showing the leaf colors changing in the fall, but I'm doing sort of a spring tree where the leaves are just coming out. So they're all going to be this green color. Okay, what color do you think we need to do the pond? Probably blue also. And you could also blend colors. Blending just means taking one color and then using another color on top of that color to create a little bit of variety. And again, since this tree overlaps my pond, I'm not going to color into the tree. I'm going to color around it and fill in that space where my pond is. And do a really neat job coloring around everything. And you could, you know, go over your pencil line also with your colored pencil if you would like. And then you can continue coloring these. Maybe do a contrasting color if you did choose to do a word on your building. You know, maybe I'll use a contrasting color like red or orange, you know, because orange is complementary with blue. Colored pencils will erase a little bit. They don't erase as well as a regular pencil, but if you do accidentally color something outside the lines or where you didn't mean to color, your eraser will, like this little spot here, it will get rid of little things like that if you need to do that. And then maybe your doors could be a contrasting color also, or whatever color you would like. Tops of buildings that are flat like this are usually gray or black. So, you know, notice how I'm turning my paper. Sometimes when I'm doing something at an angle, I like to turn my paper so that I can get to that area better. And that probably just comes naturally to most people, but you can always make it easier for yourself when you are coloring by turning your paper the direction that you are coloring. And again, coloring neatly, that's called good craftsmanship. And if you want to add texture to your roof, you could do that. Like if you wanted it to, you know, have stippling or something, you could add texture just a little bit if you'd like. Okay, remember when you color the grass, you're going to color all of this area up to the horizon line. You're not going to leave an empty white space. And when you color the sky, you're going to color from the top all the way down to the horizon line. And then maybe you have a white colored pencil or a white crayon that you could go into your clouds instead of just leaving the paper showing that color. And you would continue going. I think you get the idea with the colors on the different buildings. They can be whatever colors you'd like. The road might just be sort of a grayish black. So that is how to get started coloring and using value on your 1-point perspective drawing.